You know the saying, men are dogs? It's true because you can train them like a dog. Not to be confused with building him up. You're not building up a man. You're not helping him get established. You're training them through precedence. If somebody comes into your life, they're starting at a new job. And when you start at a new job, you have to be trained. And that's exactly what you're doing. You have to show them, this is what I'll tolerate, this is what I won't tolerate, this is how I like to be spoiled, this is what I like, this is what you can do for me, this is what I'm not gonna do. Listen, life is a web of precedents. Most of the things that you did today are because you did them yesterday and the day before that. And we tend to do things a certain way because it worked for us last time and we don't want to change anything. And that's called a status quo bias, because as humans, we have a tendency to want to keep things the way they are, even if they suck. And that's how we brainwash ourselves into thinking that we deserve less than what we're actually entitled to. Because when you think you deserve crap, then you set a precedent for yourself and for everybody else around you that's what you deserve. And that's what you're happy with. Doing more is a form of self-sabotage. And I'm going to get into that in more detail in this episode. And by doing less, you're actually triggering people's need to fill in the gaps and make them work to gain access to you and to earn the right to stick around in your life. It's like playing fetch with a dog, except you throw the ball and then you go and catch the ball. What's going to happen? After a while, the dog's going to be like, okay, what the hell? And she's probably going to stop trying to catch the ball. Because she knows that every single time you're going to be the one who catches it. Hello, baddies. Welcome to another episode. Today, wait, I did not do my intro. I haven't done my intro for I don't even know how many episodes. Okay. Hey everyone, my name is Nikki. I am the baddest bitch in the building. Not to be confused. See, I don't do it and then I mess it up. Okay, one more time. Hello, baddies. I am your host, Nikki. I am the baddest bitch in the building. Not to be confused with you, who is also the baddest bitch in the building. And this podcast is about how to hack the patriarchy by finding its loopholes so we can take advantage of them, finding its blind spots, and finding its cracks so we can further weaken them. Because if we can treat power like a software that we can understand its code, its functions, its bugs, then we're in a perfect position to hack it. Because you need to understand it first to be able to do anything. So today's episode is about doing less to get other people to do more. And before we get into this, you know when you have a gut feeling that something really good is going to happen and then it ends up happening? My intuition has been telling me this whole month that my book is going to sell out, and I have a feeling it's going to sell out.
I'm kind of psychic. I have a fifth sense. What do you mean? It's like I have ESPN or something.
I actually have this low-grade excitement like in the pit of my stomach all the time, and I'm having issues falling asleep. But I guess in a way it's good because it's from excitement and happiness, not anxiety. I'm so excited. I have a feeling it's going to sell out. The book is going to be released on November 25th, so I'm sure Amazon is going to ship them out probably on or around that date. Hey everyone, it's Editing Nikki. I am the recurring guest on this podcast, as if I'm not literally the host. Listen, super quick, I just wanted to let you know that, like I said, my book is dropping on November 25th, and I realized that that's the week of Black Friday. So I'm going to be doing my own Pink Friday giveaway campaign. And the way to enter the giveaway is just like any other giveaway you see on Instagram. You like and comment the post and follow my account. Pretty standard. That will get you one entry into the draw for an Amazon gift card valued at $100 USD. Although I'm trying to think if I'm going to do multiple gift cards or just one big gift card, so stay tuned for that. But as a way to show my appreciation and my love for all the baddies who are purchasing my book, if you DM me your order confirmation number, just copy and paste the number and DM that to me, I'll enter you in the draw, and that will count as 10 entries. Because most of you are going to buy the book anyway, so I want to give a little appreciation for your support. If you pre-order it, my pre-order link has not been opened yet. I'm still finalizing a few things on the back end, at least at the time that this episode is dropping. But if you pre-order it, you're still going to be entered into the draw. Just DM me your order confirmation, and I will announce the winner or winners on Monday, December 1st. So the giveaway will be open from Monday, November 24th until Monday, December 1st for a full week. And also stay tuned for my upcoming announcement on when pre-orders for the ebook are going to be opened, because for some reason Amazon doesn't allow pre-orders for the physical book, but it allows pre-orders for the Kindle. So make sure you're following me on Instagram, because that's where I'm going to post everything, and that's where you're going to be able to enter into the giveaway. So stay tuned for that. Okay, now back to the episode. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm not going to be able to sleep again tonight. I already know it. Okay. Let me give you an example. We're talking about the episode now, not my book. Let me give you an example. Let me tell you something. If you're hired to do a job and you fail to do it multiple times, what happens? You get fired. For example, if you work in an office and one of your responsibilities is, I don't know, to refill the paper tray in the printer, and you hate doing it, so you never do it, and every time the paper runs out, your coworker is the one who ends up filling up the paper tray, what happened? You just set a precedent. You set the precedent that you're not going to do that. Obviously, that's like a trivial task, so you're not going to get fired over that. But what you've done is you've essentially done less and made space for somebody else to step up and do more. Now, going back to what I said earlier, life is a web of precedents. Everything starts with a precedent. That's literally the basis of the common law system that exists in Canada, for example, and in the UK. Shout out to all the lawyers in the audience. But literally, the legal system in many countries that practice common law is based on this concept of stare decisis, which is Latin for to stand by things decided. And we operate our lives by the same concept, by stare decisis. The way my mic is set up, the way my camera is angled, my ring light is angled, my background is set up, all these things are like this because I did them that way last time. I didn't change anything. Everything is the same. And that's everything. Literally think of one thing that you did today, and I can almost guarantee that you did that the same way yesterday or some other time in the past. That's literally how we form habits. And when somebody suggests that we do something different or we try something new, a lot of the time we tend to get defensive. We're like, oh no, I've done it this way, it works, this is how it works for me, if it's not broken, don't fix it, blah, blah, blah. And we just continue on with that precedent. And we usually don't turn things around until they get worse, because we will put up with things that suck. I'm sure at least a handful of you listening are currently listening to this while you're working at a job that you hate. A lot of us are in a situation that we don't like, that doesn't benefit us, but we don't turn it around because we're comfortable enough that we can put up with that crap. I stayed at a job I didn't like for several years because it was comfortable enough and I got paid well and I had good benefits and it enabled me to live my hot girl, city girl life for a while. And obviously I had no dependents, so I was, free to do whatever I wanted. And then I got to a point where I'm like, if I continue doing this, I am going to fucking die because I cannot work a corporate job anymore because my soul is being crushed. And there were events that caused me to be like, screw this, I can't be here anymore. I can't do this anymore. And sometimes that never happens. Sometimes it's just moderate or low grade crap for eternity. And we just stay there, we stay comfortable forever, fine. But sometimes there's some event, the straw that broke the camel's back that causes us to be like, screw you guys, I'm going home. And that's called the region beta paradox, because everything has a name now, which basically means that things need to get worse before you take action to make them better. If you're the type of person to have a messy room with clothes and stuff cluttered all over the place, you probably live with that mess. My brother lives like this. My brother, his room always looks like the women's section at Zara, you know, when there's just clothes scattered everywhere. That's what his room looks like. And he'll just step over the clothes or step on the clothes and put everything from the bed to the chair and then from the chair to the bed and live with the mess. And then he'll clean it up one day and then the next day it looks like there was a sale at Zara and everything. The cycle continues. And chances are people who have a messy room and who live with that messy room don't do anything about it unless something happens. Unless one day you find a rat in your room or a cockroach or something and you're like, okay, this is disgusting, I need to clean up. Okay, so you might be thinking, what does all this have to do with doing less? Listen, you've set a precedent of what you will tolerate. Okay? You've set that precedent and that's rooted in what you think you deserve. You'll tolerate crap if you think you deserve crap. And it sounds really simple, but if you think about it, it's the most poetic thing I've ever said, because you will tolerate crap if you think you deserve crap. I don't tolerate anything that I don't think I deserve. If someone looks at me sideways and I don't like it, then I will literally punch them in the face. No, I'm kidding. But I don't tolerate anything that I don't deserve. And it's taken me a lot of work, a lot of unlearning, mostly unlearning to really understand that I deserve the absolute best and I will not settle for anything less. That's it. And that's how every single person needs to think. Okay? Because when you tolerate crap and you think you deserve crap, then you set a precedent for the people around you that you can give me crap and I'll be okay with it. You set that precedent to men. If you're dating, for example, you'll set that precedent and they'll try to get away with the least amount of effort. You'll show that you don't care about having money spent on you. You don't care about having effort and thoughtful things, given to you. Great. Then guess what they're going to do? Diddly. It's the same at work. If you're the person who's always the one doing everything, filling in all the gaps, doing all the work, taking the brunt of the work and taking other people's responsibilities onto your own plate, then people will get used to that and they'll expect you to do all of that work. And then one day when you don't, they'll give you crap for it. I remember at every job I've worked, there's always a handful of people who are the ones who get abused time and time again. The same people who are always overworked. It's the same people. Obviously, I don't want to victim blame and be like, oh, it's your fault. But people, you have a role to play in situations where you come in and you set a precedent. Sometimes you're rewarded for doing all that crap. Like if you work in a workplace where they want you to slave yourself out and give your soul to them, sure, maybe they'll reward you to some point. But remember that those rewards are also dictated by the boss or the management. So you're only being rewarded what they want to give you or what they think you deserve, which still could be diddly. So it's time for you to set a new standard for yourself. Okay? This is your new standard. I don't do anything that doesn't benefit me. to understand this and to actually implement this standard, you need to unlearn a false dichotomy. And a false dichotomy is basically two things that we've been told are in opposition to each other. I talk about this a lot when I talk about humility, because we're taught a false dichotomy that the opposite of humility is arrogance. So when we're presented with a bad option and a good option, obviously we're going to pick the good option. But a lot of these dichotomies that we're presented with, especially as women, are literally pulled out of Satan's butt crack. Because what the fuck are you telling? How are you telling me that the opposite of being humble is being arrogant? No, the opposite of being humble is being confident. But in this case, the false dichotomy that we need to unlearn is selflessness versus self-prioritization. Because we're taught as women that you're either selfless or you prioritize yourself. And if you prioritize yourself, you're selfish. So self-prioritization is the stark opposite of selflessness. So stupid. I actually have several false dichotomies that I talk about in my book. And one of the updates that I made to my book is, so my book, for context, is my first 20 girly laws of power. I've rebranded them as patriarchy hacks just because I don't want to get sued by Robert Greene, the guy who wrote the 48 laws of power. So my first 20 girly laws are now 20 patriarchy hacks. And each hack has a corresponding false dichotomy, one or multiple, that we need to unlearn. And this false dichotomy of selflessness versus self-prioritization comes up a lot, because we're so brainwashed to think that if we put ourselves first, we're being selfish. The thing is, putting yourself first is actually a selfless thing to do, because when you put yourself first, you're ensuring that your needs are met, you're ensuring that you're well taken care of by yourself or by other people, and you're advocating for yourself, for your basic needs, for your higher level needs, and that brings you out of survival mode and out of this sense of misery that a lot of people have when they're in survival mode and they don't have their needs met. And that makes you a more pleasant person to be around. And when you're not scraping by for the bare minimum and you're not in survival mode and you're not operating on fumes, then you're better able to be there for other people, like your close friends or your kids or whoever it is who might depend on you. I'm a better person when my needs are met. I'm a better person when I get what I want, because then I'm not going to be in a bad mood, or I'm not going to be miserable and annoyed and in a bad headspace. So I can actually be of help to somebody else if they need it, or to just be good company to somebody else. Like I talked about in Law 28, you need to act spoiled. And this standard that we have to set for ourselves, that I don't do anything that doesn't benefit me, you really have to understand that it's not going to be easy to implement this, especially if you're a people pleaser, especially if you're somebody who prides herself on being selfless and self-sacrificing. Like I mentioned in my episode on being spoiled, you don't get extra points for self-sacrificing. You don't get extra points for putting yourself last. You don't get extra points for suffering. You don't, we are taught these things through patriarchy, culture, religion. We're taught that suffering will have a reward. Suffering doesn't have a reward. What doesn't kill you doesn't make you stronger. No. What doesn't kill you makes you resentful and possibly even traumatized. So I don't want to have something almost kill me. I don't want to have a near-death experience, okay? I want to be spoiled and treated well and have everything that I deserve and not do anything that doesn't benefit me. And sure, there's going to be some situations where you're going to have to do stuff that don't benefit you, obviously, where you might have like an altruistic bone in your body. That's good. But for 90% of the things that you do, you have to have this standard. I don't do anything that doesn't benefit me. Because a lot of us want more. We want more, but when it's time to demand more, we end up doing it ourselves. Because a lot of us have a fear of rejection or a fear of something unknown, some anxiety that, oh, let me just do it myself. What if they don't do it? What if it ends up badly? 100 million different anxious thoughts, intrusive thoughts. But let me tell you something. Doing more is a form of instant gratification because you appease yourself in that moment. You want more, but when it's time for the person to step up, you do it yourself because you're scared that they're not going to do it. You're scared of rejection. You're scared of whatever. So you appease your present self by disadvantaging your future self. And that's not a very pragmatic thing to do. That's actually a very stupid thing to do. Going back to the example of a job, think about it this way. Any person who's in your life, imagine that they're in your life because you hired them to do something, especially a partner. You hired them to do something. They have a job in your life. They have a role. If their responsibility is not to benefit you in some kind of way, then you've hired them for the wrong reason. If you've ended up dating somebody and if they keep failing, then that means they're a bad fit for the position. If you need something from your partner and they don't deliver it time and time again, babes, that means you hired the wrong person for the job. Fire them and find somebody else, or fire them and don't find somebody else, because it's better to be alone than to be with a buffoon. It's better to be single than to be with an idiot. To quote a Spanish saying, yes, I'm going to quote something from my fourth language, mejor sola que mal acompañada. It's better to be alone than to be in bad company. If you've entered a relationship with a person for any reason other than a benefit to you, then you have entered a relationship for the wrong reasons. Some of you might be listening to this thinking this is so transactional or this is so wrong. If you think that way, then again, there's unlearning to do with this false dichotomy of selflessness versus self-prioritization. Because I guarantee you, any man who is in a relationship with you, first and foremost thought about how being with you is going to benefit him. When a hiring manager hires you for a job, they're not trying to be selfless and think, oh, this is transactional, I don't want to do this. They're thinking, how is this person going to do the job that we want them to do? Probably for the least amount of money too, because usually there's a race to the bottom. From every direction in your life, people are looking at you and asking how they can use you to their benefit. So you owe it to yourself to flip that script and finally put yourself first. Sure, for your relationship with your friends, that's a mutually beneficial relationship. You want each other's company and emotional support, and having girlfriends is everyone needs to have girlfriends, right? But for romantic relationships, for professional relationships, for things where you will automatically be at a disadvantage if you don't act in a self-prioritizing way, you have to ask yourself, what is the benefit to me? I left my corporate job because there wasn't a benefit to me aside from a paycheck that I would spend on clothes and online shopping because I was so stressed and so overworked that I felt like the only thing I had to show for my job and for all the pressure that I'm under is shopping. That wasn't a benefit to me. That was a material benefit, sure. And yes, as a materialistic bitch, it was great. I loved it. But I didn't love it as much as I thought I did. And I've mentioned this on previous episodes. Once I stopped working corporate, I literally stopped shopping. So remember to think of these things like a job. You've hired these people into your life to fulfill a role. And if they keep failing, then they are lousy for that position. And in any other context, they would literally get thrown out like in a cartoon. You know when they kick somebody out of the town pub, the tavern in a cartoon, and there's a giant foot that kicks them out? And then the person ends up like on the pavement outside of the bar with like on their hands and knees. And they're like, and stay out. That's literally what you need to do. You need to kick these people out of your life like a cartoon. Okay? If you need a refresher on how to treat things like a business to ensure the best outcome for yourself, listen to my law number 13. That's a law that I actually don't refer to very often in my episodes, but it's a really good law. And I didn't realize how good it was until I was updating it for my book. I'm like, damn, this is really good. But we need to start thinking of things as a business, an establishment.
Okay, but that's not the point. This is a business, an establishment. And if you were working for me, you would be fired immediately.
I don't know how many of you are going to get that reference, but I'm on the verge of glitching. So let's take a quick break, hear from whoever's paying my bills this week, fast forward through those ads, and we'll be back in a second. Hopefully it's not the assault rifle emporium or something. Oh, I feel so much better. Okay. Let's talk about actually doing less. Because ultimately that's what this episode is about, but we had to get a lot of these what I just discussed were like the prerequisites to be able to actually sit back and do less. Okay? So, doing less, like I mentioned, triggers people's tendency to fill in the gaps. And if you want people to do more for you, if you want your partner to do more, if you want your colleague, your coworker Anthony to do more, you have to let them. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but a lot of us don't let people do more. We don't. You have to create the space, the opportunity for them to step up. And they can't do that when you're doing everything, when you're filling in all the gaps and doing more. So you create the opportunity for them to do more by you doing less. A lot of women are socialized to do a lot of the emotional labor in relationships and in even work settings. A lot of the housekeeping tasks and even the emotional labor that happens at work gets placed on women. A lot of these admin tasks, a lot of these tasks that are really important for the proper functioning of a workplace, a professional environment, ends up being placed on the woman. And it bears mentioning that you also need to look like the type of person who's not going to pick up the slack. Okay? If you're dressed, listen, I might sound like your problematic uncle at Thanksgiving, but if you're dressed like a dude, if you're dressed like you're about to go to war or something with your boxy cargo pants and your combat boots, then people are literally going to expect you to act the part. If you look like a lumberjack, people are going to expect you to do work. Okay? So please dress in a way that makes it look like you are that bitch. As I mentioned at this point almost on every single episode on this show, appearance matters more than reality. If I look at a woman and she's wearing a nice dress and she's wearing pantyhose that might rip if she does something, too strenuous, and she's got nice earrings on and she just looks like a baddie, you better believe that I'm not gonna ask her for diddly, except to maybe like be in my presence and maybe like give me a kiss or something. I don't know. But if you literally look like somebody who has things handed to them, if you look spoiled, if you look pampered, if you look like somebody who just does less in life, then guess what? Visually, that's going to trigger people's tendency to do more and to fill in the gaps. So act the part, look the part, be the whole package. Just make sure that you sit back and let people fill in the gaps. And if you're the type of woman who's constantly been the one who's done everything for everyone, babes, I know it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, because it's going to go against a lot of the things that you've been taught in your life and a lot of the ways that you've done things, a lot of the precedents that you've set for yourself and for other people. But I'm willing to bet that you've also been taught that your worth depends on doing things for other people and making them happy and being of service to other people. And that's a load of crap. because your worth exists by you existing. So depending on how deep you are in doing more, you might have to gradually pull back. You might have to start little by little. If it's possible, get out of the relationships where you're being drained and you're the one who's doing everything. If you're dating a man, if you're with a man who is doing less and you doing more, put that motherfucker by the curb where he belongs. Nothing in this world is worth you sacrificing yourself for someone who's got a pair of balls between his legs. Honestly, for anyone, to be honest, for anyone. So take inventory of the relationships that need to be flushed down the toilet and figure out the relationships where you need to do a little bit of work by stepping back. And something that you might not be aware of, or maybe you're not consciously aware of, is that doing too much can actually cause resentment, especially in romantic relationships, because each person has a job. Your job is to exist and be a baddie, and his job is to do everything. You're taking the other person's job. Sorry, I'm like hetero coding this and talking about a guy, but it can be a lady as well. But I don't know anything about same-sex relationships, so please, I'm just talking about my own experience, okay? So, your job is to exist. The other person's job is to show that they earn that you can exist in their world. Okay? If you take the other person's job and you're taking their roles and their responsibilities, now they see you as competition. Especially if it's a guy. If you're doing things that men are traditionally supposed to do and men are socialized to do, he's gonna see you as competition. And a lot of what I talk about when it comes to hacking the patriarchy and getting what you want out of this butt crack world is to complement, not compete. I know you're capable of doing everything that he can do and more, but sometimes we actually need to take a step back and let other people do these things for us because it makes our lives easier. Remember the standard that we're setting for ourselves. I don't do anything that doesn't benefit me. If you want to be in Nikki's presence, then you need to treat Nikki's presence like the present that it is. Because the way I see the world and people's relationships with me is that my presence is not a given. The only person who deserves my presence by default is me and my cats. And they're not even getting 100% from me, they're getting like 95%. If you pull back and start doing less, and the other person doesn't do more and doesn't fill in the gaps, then fire them. Then that's a perfect test to show you that they don't deserve to be in your life to begin with.
And if you were working for me, you would be fired immediately.
You're not desperate. You're not needy. You're not lonely. You're not begging for somebody to be in your life. Please, sir, may I have your presence? Please, sir, may I have the bare minimum? No, bitch, no. You are enough just by being who you are. Okay? If somebody doesn't do more when you do less, then get rid of them. The toilet, where's the toilet? Go flush them down the toilet. And I know it's difficult because we've been socialized to perform emotional labor. We've been socialized to be the super glue that holds everything together. We've been socialized to think in these false dichotomies that you're either selfless or you're self-prioritizing. And we've also been socialized to be superstitious and to be under the spell of black magic. A superstition is a belief or a practice resulting from ignorance, fear of the unknown, trust in magic, or chance, or a false conception of causation. When we think to ourselves, oh, if I give everything, I'll finally be enough. If someone loves me, I'll finally love myself. If I'm putting myself first, then I'm being selfish. These are things that are superstitious because they're guided by this false conception of causation that you need to be liked. And in order for you to be liked, you need people to validate your presence by you being of service to them. This is complete and utter nonsense that keeps us in this cycle of emotional labor and subservience to other people. And it's also a form of black magic, because black magic is what? Magic involving the supposed invocation of evil spirits for evil purposes. When people are taking advantage of you and of your emotional labor, or maybe even your physical labor, maybe even your sexual labor, because you feel like you need to get validation, them doing that is feeding on evil spirits of your low self-esteem and your need for validation. And giving somebody's validation power, giving power to someone's validation of you is inherently a superstitious thing to do, because it's a false conception of causation. So doing more is a form of self-sabotage. It is a form of self-sabotage, because you're exhausting yourself, you're giving into these superstitions, you're giving into this black magic, you're depleting your finite resources of your energy and your time and your youth, and you're setting bad precedents. You're letting people know that you think you deserve crap and you'll tolerate crap. So I'm going to end on this note. You know the saying, men are dogs? It's true, because you can train them like a dog. Not to be confused with building him up. You're not building up a man. You're not helping him get established. You're training whoever it is that you hired to be your man or to be whatever role they have in your life. You're training them through precedence. If somebody comes into your life because you hired them, they're starting at a new job. And when you start at a new job, you have to be trained. And that's exactly what you're doing. You have to show them, this is what I'll tolerate, this is what I won't tolerate, this is how I like to be spoiled, this is what I like, this is what you can do for me, this is what I'm not going to do. That list is probably pretty long. And so you're training them to show them what it's like to be in your presence and to be in your life. Okay? You're not a bottomless mimosa. You don't need to be giving and giving and giving and giving and depleting yourself. No. Do less so they can do more. All right, baddies, we have reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're interested in these superstitions, I might add that I go into a lot of detail about them in my book. I have 6 different superstitions, and I've assigned each patriarchy hack its own corresponding superstitions, either one or multiple, that we need to unlearn. Because there's a lot of unlearning to do. So when I tell y'all this book has been updated and I put my whole badussi into making it the best possible version of it that it can be, you better believe it. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you in the next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget that you are the baddest bitch in any building that you step foot in. All right, until next time, stay bad. Love you. Bye. All right, I'm going to give a shout out to all the baddies who are supporting on Patreon. Shout out to Kate, Danny, Adriana, Mina, Gemma, Priya, Katya, May, Naomi, Nilufar, Adelaide, Nadia, Faith, Amy, Simran, Melinda, Bindi, Sophia M, Sophia K, Jada, Yael, Roselle, Amara, Kat, Jin, Delia, May, and Viv. Thank you all so much for your support.